We're starting today on Daf Pei Amud Beis in the Mishnah. Zok the Mishnah, Bakoil ma'arvin u'mishtatfin. You could use any foods for the aid of Chatzeris or for the shit of Muvais. Chutz min hamayim min hamelach. You can't use water or salt because that's not food that gives a person any, that doesn't satiate him in any way. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua says, Kikar hu eirov. You could only use a kikar, a bread, for an eirov. You can't use any food. For shutuf muvais, you can use any food, but for eirov chatzeres, it has to be a bread. Afile ma'afesa. For hu prusa, even if you have a big bread that you baked, and I saw a big amount, but it's a prusa. You cut a slice of it, a marvin ba. You can't use a slice of bread. Kikar, ke'iser, if you have a loaf of bread that's not mamash a loaf. I don't know if you can call this a loaf. A iser is like a tiny coin. So you have a little tiny challah that you bake, mamash as small as a iser, but for hushalim, it's full, it's whole, not a slice, ma'arvin bite. You can make an erev with this. It has to be, so to use for an erev, according to Rabbi Yeshua, it has to be dafke bread and a whole loaf or a whole piece and not a slice. Rashi here says though, even though we're saying that you can use a kicker as small as a coin of an isser, but it's going to depend on the amount of people, how much of that you're going to need. We learned before this Mishnah yesterday that it has to be a shear of a kegreigeris for each person. So you're going to have a few kikrais. But the point is, it can't be a slice, it has to be a whole piece of bread. As the Gemara will explain, what's the reason for this? What's the reason you have to have dafka a whole, a shleima, and not a prusa? Frek the Gemara, Tanina Chadazimna, we learned this already once. We learned earlier regarding Erev Tchumen. Bakoil ma'arvin u'mishtatfin. You can use any foods for Erev Tchumen, and it also says for the shituf, for shituf muvais, you can use any food. Chutz min hamayim v'melach, besides water and salt. So I already said this once. Why is it saying over here again? The Tana Kama, why is he saying this again? Amarabe la'fuke mid Rabbi Yeshua. The Tana over here, Rabbi Eliezer, is coming to exclude from Rabbi Yeshua's opinion the Omar kikar in midei achrini loy. Rabbi Yeshua says that it has to be dafke bread and not anything else. So therefore, Kamash Mulan, he's telling me that not only b'negei to Erev Tchumen. If you would have said it before, you would have thought that he's saying only by Bakoil ma'arvin, only b'negei to Erev Tchumen. Maybe by Erev Chatzeres, you would have thought that he agrees to Rabbi Yeshua. So therefore, he says over here again, b'negei to Erev Chatzeres as well, that he disagrees with Rabbi Yeshua, and it doesn't have to be dafke bread. It could be any foods besides water and salt. Kamash Mulan. So that's why it says it over here again, b'negei to Erev Chatzeres. Bakoil, that you can do with anything. Eisvei Abaye asks on this. Bakoil ma'arvin, in a Braisa it says, Bakoil ma'arvin eruv chatzeris. You can make eruv chatzeris with any foods. U'bakoil mishtatfin shitufim muvais. You can make the shituf muvais with any foods. Then the Braisa says, V'loi omru la'arev bepas ela b'chotzer bulvad. When does it say that you must have bread that's only for eruv chatzeris? So how do you learn pshat in this Braisa? In the beginning of the Braisa it said that bakoil ma'arvin, you can make with everything. And then it said you have to do only bread. So the pshat in this Braisa is, as Rashi explains, that when it says bakoil ma'arvin, it means all types of bread. Doesn't mean any food. It means all types of bread. When it says bakoil mishtatfin, there it means taka, all kinds of food. So man shamet leidama pasin midachrin eloi. Who's the one that says that for Erev Chatzeres it has to be dafka bread and not any other foods? Rabbi Yeshua. That's Rabbi Yeshua's opinion. The katoni bakoil. And it says in this Braisa, even regarding Erev Chatzeres, bakoil ma'arvin. So what does bakoil ma'arvin here mean? Bakoil ma'arvin here doesn't mean literally you can use any foods. Bakoil ma'arvin means any type of bread. That's what it means. So the Gemara's question is, how do you know, B'chlal, that Rabbi Eliezer disagrees with Rabbi Yeshua? Maybe, going back to our Mishnah, how are you going to read the Mishnah? Bakoil ma'arvin, Rabbi Yeshua is saying you could use any type of bread. And then, umishtatfin, b'negei to shituf, he's saying you could use any type of food, not only any type of bread. Just like we see in the Lashon of this Braisa. Maybe we could touch the Mishnah the same way. Elam Rabbi Bar Chana. So Rabbi Bar Chana says, you're right, based on this Braisa, we don't have a raya that Rabbi Eliezer argues with Rabbi Yeshua. He says the taka that you must have bread as well. So la'afukim the Rabbi Yeshua the Oma Shleima in Prusalai. The only argument here between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua is going to be not whether you could use other foods or not, but whether it has to be a Shleima or a Prusa. The Ikki Chiddush of Rabbi Yeshua was that it has to be a whole Tafka Shleima.
Why the difference?
The Gemara is going to explain.
So that means that you could use other foods though?
According to the Tanakama, according to Rabbi Eliezer as well. You can use... no, no, you can't.
You can't.
Huh?
The chol means that it can be, meaning it could be any other kick, any kicker.
Any minim,
minim kicker.
all kinds of minim of a kicker, exactly.
The price also.
The price
Yeah.
we have to be deichek, because it says pass.
Correct,
Why do we have to be
correct.
deichek in our Mishnah?
We hayais we see in the Braisa that this is the meaning of the word bakoil, so we know that could be the pshat of bakoil, so we could say the same thing in the Mishnah. The Gemara doesn't consider it to be a deichek. That's the okay, maybe that's also true. We want to minimize the machlokes. Correct. Want to minimize the machlokes as well. Yeah. So kamash melon. So what is the Tanakama saying? Bakoil. Bakoil means that it doesn't have to be dafke it could be any type of kiker, and it could be a shleima, it could be a prusa. That was the main machlokes over here. Okay, maybe Rabbi Yeshua also holds that you can have any type of kikar. He's not arguing on that. The main machlokes between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer is, does it have to be dafka a shleima or even a prusa? So to Gemara, a prusa might time eloi, and what's the reason why you can't use a slice of bread according to Rabbi Yeshua? Amar Rabbi Yosef ben Shaul, Amar Rabbi Mishum Eva. The reason is because it'll bring arguments. As Rashi says here, one person says, I'm bringing a whole bread, you're bringing a slice of bread, it's not fair. So that will bring arguments, so therefore they said everyone should bring dafka a whole bread.
Yeah, but why the difference? Why dafka passed there and here any type of food?
So we spoke about this once before, because when it comes to Erev Chatzeris, the inyan of Erev Chatzeris is the dira of a person in a house. In a house, to be kivei a dira in a house, has to be dafka bread. That's the ikar suda of a person. Mashenk and Shituf Mavois is placed outdoors in a chotzer that all the chatzeris are sharing a mavoi. It's not establishing the dira in a house. So for that, it's not a heker, but it's in a chotzer. You're putting all the people of the chatzeris are sharing together their chatzeris, not indoors in a house. So for that, any kind of food is good enough. We had that before once in Rashi. Okay, Zok the Gemara weiter. So the reason is Eva. So what's if everybody brings a slice of bread? So there's no arguments. Amalei, no, they still made this takana that everyone should bring a shleima. Shema yachsa davar lekulkula, because maybe it'll happen that one will bring a slice and one will bring a whole bread, and then there'll be arguments again. So therefore they required, they were misaken, that everybody should bring a whole bread. Amar Rabbi Yechanan ben Shaul, nitla heimena kedei chalasa. If you have a shleima, but you had to remove from it chala, didn't take the chala when it was still dough, you have to take off the chala from the bread. Kedei dimua, or what happens if you had in this dough that was mixed in truma, and now you have to take off from that because of the dimua, because of the mixture of truma inside of it, you have to cut off a piece for this truma, 1/100th. You have to cut off in order to be misaken it, to be able to eat it. So Rabbi Yechanan ben Shaul says that you can make an eruv with this, even though it's l'chayda not a shleima, but it wasn't really a shleima. Elamai, you just had to remove the chala or the mixture of truma, you can still use it for an eruv. Frekta Gemara v'Tanya, but in a Braisa it said kidei dimua ma'arvan leiba. If you had to remove the mixture of truma, then you still could use it for an eruv. But kedei chalasa, if you have to remove chala from it, ma'arvan leiba. You can't use it for an eruv. And for the Gemara, loy kashya. It's not a question. Ha b'chalas nachtoim. Ha b'chalas balabayis. There's different chalas. There's a chala that a baker makes, and there's a chala that a private balabayis makes. And the shear of chala that you take off is different. It's not. It says in the Mishnah, shear chala echad mesrim varba. The shear of chala is how much? 1 of 24. Ha'isisa la'atzmai. But if you're making it yourself, that's so challah for a baker is going to be 1 of 24. But if you're baking your bread for yourself, even if you're baking the bread for a chasana for your son, so it's not just privately, but it's for a big event, for a big party, still the shear is echad me'esrim. Huh?
The other way around.
What again? Okay, so sorry, yeah, okay, let's start again. So the shear of challah is echad me'esrim varba, 1/24th. That's a larger shear of challah. So then the Mishnah spells out, if you're making the challah for yourself, even for a chasana for your child, then echad me'esrim varba. The shear is a 24th. Nachtaim, if it's a baker, shu oisa limker b'shuk, he makes the challah not for himself, he's making it to sell in the market. V'chein ha'isha shu asasa limker b'shuk. The same thing also, even if it's a private woman, but she's making it in order to sell in the market. Then the shear is echad marba mishmayna. Half. The shear is only 1/48. So when you take off a smaller shear of challah, then you can still use it for the Eid of Chatzeres. When you take off a larger piece, a 24th, that can't be used.
So 48 means still a shleima?
It's still considered to be a shleima even if you take off a 48th of it. Yeah. But if you take off from it.
It's enough that you should be able to have an achiza.
Amar Rav Chiste Tafra Bekisim. If you have two pieces, it's two pieces that they're broken off, and now you want to put it back together. So Tafra Bekisim, you take a chip of wood and you put it inside and you attach the two pieces of the challah. Ma'arvan leiba, you can make a native with this. Frek the Gemara v'hatanya e ma'arvan leiba, but it says that you can't make a native if you're taking two broken pieces of bread and putting it together. And for the Gemara, like Kashya, ha the yediyah tifra, if it's noticeable that it's two pieces and it was put together with a chip of wood, so then you can't use it. Ha the lo yediyah tifra, but if you put it together in a way that it looks like a shleima, so then you're allowed to use it. This is actually taka brought b'negei to Lechem Mishnah, that the same halacha by Lechem Mishnah. To put it together, that it should be a shleima for Lechem Mishnah. If you can put it together in a way that you don't see that it's two different pieces, you can use it for Lechem Mishnah. Huh?
You use a toothpick?
Yeah, you could put in a toothpick and attach two parts of a challah to make it one. But it has to be in an oifen that you don't see, yeah. You can make the Eirov with bread that's rice bread or pas deichen, which usually is taiched millet. But there's a big machlaikis what Eirez is and what deichen is. Some say fakert, Eirez is millet and pas is deichen is rice. Either way. Amamar ukve, ledidi mefarsheli minei demar Shmuel. I heard from Shmuel, bepas Eirez ma'arvin, with rice bread you could make the Eirov, or bepas deichen ein ma'arvin. But if it's pas deichen, you can't make an Eirov. So he heard that there's a chiluk between them. You could make an Erev with bread that's made out of lentils. Is this true? There was a case in the time of Shmuel of the bread that was made from lentils. And this bread was thrown to a dog to eat, and even a dog didn't eat it. So you see that it's not edible. So a human being for sure doesn't eat this. And says the Gemara, Hahi the shar minim havya. Over there, it wasn't just lentil bread. There was other minim in it as well that made it inedible. If it would have just been lentil bread, it would have been edible. The Chsiv, Pasuk says, it's a Pasuk in Yecheskel, where the Eibishter tells Yecheskel, when you get to a nevuah of the hunger that's going to be in Yerushalayim, so the Eibishter tells him, Va'ata kachlecha chitim se'oirim upuladashim v'doichin v'kusmim, bake a bread which is basically inedible, and eat this bread which is not edible.
And now you pay extra for it.
Now
you pay extra for it.
There's a bread called cheskel bread.
Ezekiel bread.
Oh yeah?
Ezekiel bread.
It has this pasuk on the bread.
Oh really? You serious? Okay, so
It's more expensive. It's like a healthy bread.
okay. So this bread over here with all these different minim, and the Eibusha tells them to eat this bread to show the future of the hunger that's going to be that you eat such a kind. People are going to be so hungry that they're going to end up eating this bread that nobody wants to eat. Okay? So we see over here that pul adashim together with other minim is not edible. But if it's just adashim alone, it is edible. Rav Papa Amar Hahi tzluya b'tzoya sa'adam avoi. That bread that pasuk is talking about, the problem over there wasn't just that it had all these kinds of minim. It was roasted with the tzoya of a person. That's what made it inedible. The Chsiv, yeah, by Yecheskel, that pasuk over there. The Chsiv, because over there in the pasuk it says, "Vihi begololei tzayas adam Ti'ugena, that it should be prepared, it should be baked with the tzoya of a person. So that's why it wasn't le'einayim. That's why it wasn't roi to eat. But otherwise, it would have been roi to eat. The pasuk, the Gemara here teaches what it says there in that pasuk. V'ugas se'oirim teichlena. You should eat it as a cake or as a bread of barley. What does this mean? It's not barley. It had other minim in it also. Why does it say dafke se'oirim? Rav Chisda l'shiyurim. The Eibusher is telling him, and this bread that you'll eat to show the Yidden the hunger that's going to happen, eat it small amounts. Rations. Just like when a person eats in a time of a hunger, rations, right. When a person eats in a time of a hunger, you eat small rations. Rav Papa mar arevasa ka'areva sa'oirim. That it's prepared the way you prepare a bread that's made from barley, which is not prepared in a nice shape. It doesn't hold a shape. It's not a proper bread. V'loi ka'areva schitim, and not the way you make bread when you make a mixture of dough. The way you make from when you make from wheat with the bread is much nicer bread. Okay. Sagt the Mishnah, going back to the halacha again of Erev Chatzeris.
Doesn't have to be real bread. Doesn't have to be hamoitzi.
Correct. Doesn't have to be hamoitzi. It could be from Oires or even Pasadashin maybe. Chayre, yeah.
With other minim. With other minim.
Maybe even according to Rav Papa, but I'm not sure about if you can use it with other minim. Sagt the Mishnah. So here again we're talking about the inclusion of another person. You have all the people of the Erev Chatzeris and you want to include all of them together. So we spoke in the previous Mishnah about you have to notify somebody if you're taking from his food before you take for him. So the Mishnah says as follows. So if in your Chatzer there's one person which has a store, he's selling bread, and you give him money, you're giving him money to buy from that bread, Chenveni, a storekeeper, lanachtaim, a baker, kedei sheyiske loy eirov. In order that, if people are going to come and make an eirov chatzeris, you want to buy a bread from him in order that it should be used for the eirov chatzeris. So it's a good eirov. Eirov, it's divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says it's good. You paid him for the bread, so now that bread you will kaina that bread, and now he can go and put that bread for you for the eirov chatzeris. Chachamim say, no, doesn't work. Your money that you gave him was not kind of that bread. And as we'll see in the Gemara Barichas, this is based on the fact that kesef, ma'os, does not create a kinyan. There's no kinyan of kesef. The kinyan would be dafke meshicha. But over here there was no meshicha, you didn't take it, you paid him for it. Paying for it does not create a kinyan. So since it does not create a kinyan, that bread never became yours, so it can't be used for the Erev Chatzeris. And this person, even if he's going to be making an Erev Chatzeris for everyone else, but for you, he can't make the Erev Chatzeris. You wanted to be kaina this bread, and dafke then it should be an Erev Chatzeris, when you were kaina the bread. But the bread is not going to be kaina. And when he's putting aside this bread for you, he's putting it aside thinking that it's your bread. But really it's not your bread. Really it's his bread. So therefore it doesn't work.
Unless he makes that bar tefa.
Huh? That what?
Makes that bar tefa.
If he's mezaked for you, if he's going to be mezaked for you. Right. But over here that's not the kavanah that he's doing. That's not what he's not being mezaked to you. He thinks that you're buying it. And the kinyan wasn't chal. So therefore the Erev Chatzeris doesn't take effect. Sagt the Mishnah, but the Chachamim amaydim b'shar kol adam shezachu lo ma'isav. When it comes to another person, which is not selling, it's not to be kaina, it's not a sale. When you give a stam, another neighbor in your chatzah, and you give him money for the Erev Chatzeris, over there we know that your kavanah was not to be kaina the bread, you were just giving him money to appoint him as a shliach, that he should make the Erev Chatzeris for you. You weren't trying to, when you come to a storekeeper or a baker, you give him money, you wanted to buy the bread for the Erev Chatzeris, and the kinyan wasn't chal. Stam a person, you're giving him money just to appoint him as a shliach to make the Erev for you, so he can put aside the food for you even without you being kainit, and it takes effect. And the Mishnah says, this whole idea is based on the fact that you can't make an Erev for a person only midaitoi. So if you wanted the Erev to be chal through being kainit the food, and the kinyan didn't take effect, so then he can't make the Erev for you. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, or it seems he disagrees. The whole idea that you have to get reshus when you make Erev for somebody is only by Erev Tchumen. Aval beiruve chatzeres When it comes to Erev Chatzeris, Ma'arvin L'Daitoi, Shaloi L'Daitoi, you can make the Erev for him whether he agrees, whether he doesn't agree, it doesn't make any difference. When it comes to an Erev Chatzeris, it's a chus for him. The person wants to be able to carry in the Chatzah. There's no downside to this. When it comes to an Erev Tchumen, if you put an Erev Tchumen in one place, so then it minimizes the space that I can go in the other area. So therefore, for an Erev Tchumen, you have to get his permission.
Yeah, but the fact that he gave the money shows that you have to have in mind you have to be zecher. Okay, he's doing it. My intention is to do it because.
But you're talking about now by Erev Chatzeris or Erev Tchumen?
Even by Erev Chatzeris.
Okay, no.
So there, right? So it is machlekes on the beginning of the Mishnah, right? He's arguing.
Yeah, Rabbi Yehuda, of course, yeah. But Pashtus Rabbi Yehuda is arguing in the beginning of the Mishnah, yeah.
Okay, but over there, it's the fact that he's giving him the money means, and the person therefore is not being mezakeh him because it's his already. There's a lack of zoch lo in front of him. He has to have an intention. But he's not going to have the intention.
Correct. The chenveni, the nachtime.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
So maybe they're saying the same thing.
When I get to that prat, when I get to... okay, I hear your question. I hear your question. Okay, I'm not sure. Sagt the Gemara, my time with the Rabbi Eliezer. So what's the pshat of Rabbi Eliezer? Rabbi Eliezer says over here in the beginning of the Mishnah that the mois is going to be kaina. How is the mois kaina? Ha loy moshach. There was no meshicha. So if there's no meshicha, there's no kinyan. So then the erev shouldn't take effect. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua, Asay Rabbi Eliezer kedalet prokim b'shana. Rabbi Eliezer says that this is an exception. Over here, mois is going to be kaina, and like you find there's 4 periods in the year. When you get to being kaina an animal to shecht for a yontif, that mois is going to be kaina. Rashi here brings what are the 4 periods in the year? It's Erev Pesach, Erev Shavuos, Erev Rosh Hashanah, and Erev Shmini Atzeres. And another opinion, Erev Yom Kippur, in the Golul. Okay, but it's interesting. It's Tafke Erev Shmini Atzeres and not Erev Sukkis. So that's what Rashi brings in. There's 2 pshatim for this. One pshat is because Erev Sukkis is people are busy with the sukkah and the lulav. Talking about preparing an animal, to shecht an animal for a carbon. As we'll see, let's first see the Braisa, the Gemara inside. So it's a Mishnah actually. The Tanan, it says in the Mishnah, Bedalit, Prokim, Elu, Mashchitin, Esatabach, Balkarchoi. In these 4 periods of the year, so you have a butcher, he owns animals, so you can force him to shecht the animal for you when you pay him for it. What's the chiddush? Afil shor shava 1,000 dinar. So he has a shor, an ox that's worth 1,000 dinar. Ve'ein lelikeach ela dinar echad, and you're paying him kesef. You're paying him only 1 dinar. You can force him to do the shchita for you. You paid, and it's kaina. The kinyan takes effect, and he has to shecht it for you. Why? Because this is a takan of Chazal. Takan of Chazal, because people need the food for the yontif, for the simcha of the yontif. So Chachamim were made this takana that even if you pay just a pruta for an ox that's worth so much money, the kinyan should take effect right away, and now it's yours. And once it's yours, so therefore he has to shecht it for you. Lefichach, in meis, if this animal died, meis la lekeach, it's yours, it belongs to the lekeach. If it died before the shchita, it belongs to you. So it's your bad luck. Fragt the Gemara, meis la lekeach, how does this happen? How does this kinyan take effect? If you just gave him money, we know that mois is not kaina. As we'll see in the Hemshech of the Gemara over here, that mois l'chayre, kesef is not a kinyan. So why are you kaina it? Ha loy moshach, he didn't make a meshicha. Amar Rav Huna b'shem moshach. The case over here in this Mishnah is he did do meshicha. So since he did meshicha, it was kind of right away. Fragt the Gemara, that can't be the pshat here. Ihachi eim seifa. What does it say in the seifa? B'shar yemais hashana einekain. On a regular day of the year, any other time, this would not be the halacha. If you paid a little bit for this ox, it's not yours yet.
You don't get the whole ox. You get that part that you paid, right?
The whole thing. You kind of the entire thing.
Rashi says that he says ba'is hasher ben lelekeh ba'is hasher ledina. What with a dinner you can buy $1,000.
Yeah.
With $1 I can buy $1,000.
The kinyan to take effect. We're not talking now about the payment for it. He'll pay him whatever they made up, whatever they made up to pay. He'll pay later, but the kinyan takes effect for the whole thing right away. Yeah. So the shaila of the Gemara is, if we're going to say that in addition to the fact that he paid, there was also Meshicha, so then, why B'shaya Meis Hashana Ein Kain? So why do we say that the rest of the year, when you made Meshicha on this shayr, so then, what does it say in the Sefer? Lefichach im Meis L'Meicher, that if the shayr dies, it still belongs to the Meicher. Amai Hamashach, but he made a Kinyan Meshicha. What's this Gemara based on? Again, the Gemara over here is based on a basic shaila. Min hat Torah. What is a kinyan for metaltalin? In order to be kind of metaltalin, is kesef a kinyan for metaltalin or not? So it's a big machlokes. The Gemara here is soon going to bring a chelik of the machlokes. This is a machlokes that you have in Baba Metzia between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish holds min hat Torah. There's no such a thing as a kinyan of mois, of kesef. The kinyan min hat Torah is meshicha. Today we make a kinyan with kesef. That's a takana with the Rabbanon. Min ha-Torah, there's no such a kinyan of kesef. Mashenka Rabbi Yochanan holds the opposite. That there is a kinyan of kesef min ha-Torah, and Mashiach is a takana with the Rabbanon. Okay, so right now the Gemara is going with the notion that in order to be kaina any movable items, to be kaina metaltalin, the only kinyan that it must be is Mashiach, to pull it into your rishus. But kesef is not a kinyan b'chlal. So over here in this case, when it comes out of Yom Tov, and a person wants to be kind of the animal. So the Mishnah is saying, you pay one dinner and you kind of the whole animal. So the Gemara is asking, what's the case? Did he do Meshicha as well or not? So if you're going to say that he did do Meshicha, so then there's no distinction between these special times of Erev Yom Tov and the rest of the year. He made Meshicha, so of course he's kind of it. So the Gemara brings here a few pshatim. Amar Rab Shmuel bar Yitzchak. So the first pshat is Rab Shmuel bar Yitzchak said, La'olam b'shaloi mashach. The case over here is that he paid for this shayr and he did not do Meshicha. Hacha b'mayaskinon b'shazicha loi al yedei acher. That over here, this person did not buy it directly. He was mezakeh, the butcher was mezakeh, this shayr to a lekeach through someone else. He's being mezakeh you this entire shayr through another person. You need it, you want it. So therefore we say as follows. But in these times when it's an erev yontiv, yes, you do want it. This chusula, you need the meat for the yontiv. So therefore zachan leishalei b'fanav. So if the butcher sells it to you through someone else, even without asking you, it's a schus for you, you need it. But the rest of the year, where a person doesn't need all this meat for a Yom Tiv, the chayvu lai, so therefore it's a chay for him, ein chavan lai ela b'fanav. So therefore, it's a chay for him. You're not interested in this acquisition. You don't want this shayr b'chlal, so therefore it's going to be a chayv and the kinyan won't take effect. So according to this pshat in the Gemara, Rab Shmuel bar Yitzchak, l'chayre, there's a machlokes about this. But l'chayre, lav dafke refers to the entire shayr, because to say that one person for his family needs the meat of an entire shayr is a tremendous amount. A person doesn't need so much basar. So according to this pshat, when it says that if he's mezakeloi al yidei acher, he's going to be kainet, lav dafke, it means the entire shayr. It only means a chelik of the shayr. Huh?
Who gave the dinner?
Al yidei acher. He was mezakel al yidei acher, someone else, exactly, for you. Yeah. So B'shaya Meis Hashana, because it's not a schos, so you're not kind of any of it. You can't be mezakim yasher. I'm not interested in having it. Mashenken, Erev Yontif, we know that it's a schos for you. Erev Yontif, you need the basar. That's one pshat. But this is not the pshat that's negeya here for our sugya. Now the Gemara brings the pshat that's negeya for our sugya. Rav Ila Amar Rav Yochanan, V'dalet prakim elu, it's in these 4 times of the year, Erev Yontiv, Hemidu Chachamim Divreyem al Divrei Torah. Chachamim said that we go back to the way the halacha is to be kind of metaltalin min ha-Torah. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Dvar Torah mois kainis. Rabbi Yochanan's opinion is min ha-Torah mois, kesef, makes a kinyan. Why did Chachamim say that usually you should not allow kesef to be kaina, but you have to also do meshicha? If kesef is going to be kaina, what's going to happen? You buy something from someone and it's still in the storage house of the meicher. A fire breaks out and the meicher thinks to himself, why should I work hard to extinguish the fire? Why should I save this? It's not mine anymore, it's not my loss, and he's not going to go and do anything about it. So we want him, as Rashi here says, to go and be Meiser Nefesh, to save it for you. So therefore we say that the kinyan wasn't kaina yet, and if the loss is going to take place, it's going to be the Meicher's loss. It's not yours.
Mashma, that even there won't be a fire, you can tell him that. You can try to steal this. You can try to steal the wheat by.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Don't say Shema Lo Yechaber.
Okay.
I think says that.
Yeah, that he's gonna, huh? This is the way Taisus, the whole Arichas here in Taisus, that there'll be a fire, and then he'll say to him, you have tinus to me. You have tinus that I sold you something, and now it's not. It was yours already. It was sold. And no tinus to me. It's your bad luck that the fire happened, that it burnt it. One second, let me just explain the pshat over here in this Mishnah. So what we're saying over here is usually there's a takon of Chazal that kesef should not be kaina and Meshicha should be kaina because of this concern. But over here, there's 4 times of the year when it came out of Yontif, and the person doesn't have time to do the kinyan of Meshicha, and he wants to be kaina just by giving him a dinner, and he's kaina the entire ox for the meat that he needs for the Yontif. Chachamim put the halacha in these 4 times of the year that is going to be kaina with kesef. That was the pshat in this Mishnah over here, beneged to the Dalet Prokim. The same thing Rabbi Eliezer holds applies also beneged to Erev Chatzeres. Even though usually you can't be kaina with kesef, but beneged to Erev Chatzeres, in order to be able to carry in the Chatzar and Shabbos, Chachamim said that the kesef will be kaina. Because minatayra kesef is kaina. So regarding Erev Chatzeres, Chachamim placed the halacha back to the way it is minatayra. Yeah. Kesef, Shavak Kesef, it doesn't make any difference.
I'm saying is it acquired what the equal value, or is it?
No, for sure not.
Doesn't have to acquire only.
Kinyan Kesef is not payment. There's a kinyan that creates a kinyan. It could be a Shavak Pruta. The payment is a different story. That's the value. That's the value of the behemoth. That's a whole different story. It has nothing to do with, huh?
That's what we just learned about the dinner. With
that what?
One dinner,
you could kind of the whole thing.
Same. Karka, that's what we have. Karka, we have.
Same thing. Karka is kind of with kesef and chazakah.
The down payment is kind of.
It's not only a down payment. Down payment is already a different lashon. A pruta, a shava pruta, which is kesef, creates a kinyan. There's a machlekes actually here between Rashi and Taisus. From where do you know in Atayra that kesef is kaina? Where is there a pasuk somewhere in Torah that says kesef is kaina? Rashi brings that the whole makir is from the pidyon of hektish. V'nasan kesef v'kom loy. When you kaina hektish, it says you pay money to the hektish, and the pidyon, the redemption of the hektish takes effect. That's the makir for kinyan kesef. Taisus disagrees. Taisus says you can't learn out from pidyon of hektish. Hektish is a different story. Lavdaf gets a raya to any hedyet. Taisus says the raya is because it says oy konoi miyada misecha. Miyada misacha refers to money that you give from hand to hand.
Isn't by Ephraim?
Are you sure?
That's a karka, true also. Huh? Yeah.
Oh, that's kicha. That's you learn from.
And metaltalin. This whole shaila has been again to kesef being kind of by metaltalin. Sagt der Gemara weiter, umaydim b'shar kaladam chulu. It said in the Mishnah that the Chacham will be maide, that only when we're talking about a nachtaim, a chenvini, and you paid him, you wanted to buy it, so then it doesn't take effect, the Eid of Chatzeris. But by any other person, the Eid of will take effect. Man shar kaladam. So when it says in the Mishnah, any other person, who are we talking about? Amarav balabayis. Stama balabayis. Stama private person that lives with you in a chatzer. Chena mashmuel balabayis. Mashmuel loishanu el nachtaim. If you're paying a nachtaim, if you're paying a baker, so then the kinyan of the mois did not take effect according to the Tanakama, so therefore there's no Eid of Chatzeris. Ava balabayis kaina. By a balabayis, it will be kaina. Mashmuel loishanu el mo. This that we said in the Mishnah that you give money, and the money was not kaina, because according to the Chachamim, kesef by metaltalin is not kaina, that's only money. Avol keili kaina. But if it's a keli, it is kaina. How is it kaina with a keli? So the kinyan of a keli, as Rashi says, is kinyan sudar. This is the kinyan of chalipin. Chalipin is a kinyan that's kaina by everything, by metaltalin, by karkois, by anything. So if you give a keli as a kinyan sudar, that will be kaina. V'amashmuel loishanu ela the amalei zachali. In the Mishnah, when it said that you gave money to a baker, to a storekeeper, to be kaina food from him, and it won't be kaina, that's if you told him zachali, that you should be kaina from me, that I want to buy from you. Aval ama arevli, but if he didn't say I want to be kaina from you, he said to him, I'm giving you money that you should make an Eid of Chatzeris for me, so then he doesn't want to buy it. He's not trying to buy it with the money. Shliach shavye. So then he's just giving him money because he's appointing him as a shliach to make the Eid of Chatzeris for him. He's not trying to buy it. V'kani, and therefore he can make the Eid of Chatzeris for you and it'll take effect. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, the next thing it said in the Mishnah, Bamed Dvarim Amurim. Rabbi Yehuda was arguing. Rabbi Yehuda says when it comes to an Eid of Chatzeris, so you could make an Eid of Chatzeris for anybody in the Chatzer, even Shaloi Midaitai. Okay, you're making an Eid of Chatzeris Shaloi Midaitai and it's okay. So he argued in the Tanakama of the Mishnah. Am Rav Yehuda Mashmuel halacha Rav Yehuda. We paskin like Rav Yehuda. V'loyoid ela kol makim sheshana Rav Yehuda be'Eiruvin halacha k'maisa. Whenever Rav Yehuda argues and says his halacha, we always paskin like Rav Yehuda by Eiruvin. Amar Rav Chana Bagdad Tahor. Rav Chana from Baghdad said, "Le Rav Yehuda Mashmuel." According to Rav Yehuda Mashmuel, afile b'mavoi shenitlu kairaisav elechiyov. Will this be true even regarding another thing that Rav Yehuda said, which comes later in over here in Eiruvin, a case of a mavoi where it had a lechi or a kaira, and it was removed in the middle of Shabbos. So Rabbi Yehuda says that because it was there in the beginning of Shabbos, you can carry weiter on Shabbos. Do we paskin over there like Rabbi Yehuda as well? Amalei be'Eiruvin amarti lach v'loy b'mechitzis. This that I said that you paskin like Rabbi Yehuda is regarding Eiruvin, which would mean Eruv Chatzeres, Eruv Tchumen, not benegeya to mechitzis. The halacha of a lechi and a kaira is not really a Eruv; it's a mechitza. Over there, you don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. If we're paskening like Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel is saying the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that means that the Tanakama argued on Rabbi Yehuda. Is that true? Whenever Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah uses the expression of Amosai, he starts his statement with an Amosai, or he says Ubameh. In the Mishnah, he's coming to explain what the Chachamim said. He's not coming to argue. So, over here as well, when the Mishnah says, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda bameh dvarim amurim, he's not coming to argue, he's coming to clarify what the Tanakama said. So there's no machlokes here. Why does he have to paskin like Rabbi Yehuda? Frek the Gemara, it's not an argument. There's no argument whether when you're making an Erev Chatzeres for someone else in the Chatzer, whether you have to be Maidia him, whether you have to let him know that you're using his food. For Ha'anan Tanan, what we learned in the Mishnah, Nitaisva Aleyan, this is the previous Mishnah that we learned yesterday. If a new person comes into the Chatzer, Maisefu Mezake, Vitzarech Laidia, you could be Mezake for him, you have to add more food, but you have to let him know. So we learned in the previous Mishnah that you do have to let him know. So we clearly see that there is a machlekes between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda whether you have to let him know or not. And says the Gemara, we had this yesterday already. Hasam b'chotze shebein shnei muvoyes. Over there we can say that the case is that it's a person that's not dafka part of the chotzer. He's living in a chotzer between two muvoyes. He could go out from another place, and lav dafka is even part of this chotzer. Over there you have to let him know. So lav dafka, there's an argument here. Fragt the Gemara, ha'amar av Shizvi, amar av Chiste, zois oimeres chalukin olav chaverav al Rabbi Yehuda. So Rav Shizvi, in the name of Rav Chiste Befeidish, said that it is a machlekes, whether a person living in the chutzah, you have to let him know or not. So Elo, says the Gemara, you're right. Gavra karamis. You're asking a question from one Amayra to another Amayra. Shmuel held it's a machlekes, and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi held it's not a machlekes. Mar Savar Pligi. Shmuel held that it's a machlekes, and Mar Savar Pligi, and he held that it's not a machlekes.